Ladies and gentlemen, there's something unsettling about silence, about things, or people, vanishing without a trace, no warning, no explanation, just disappear. It sounds cold, doesn't it? But let me ask you something: how many of you have stayed in places far longer than you should have? Jobs, relationships, environments, situations that drained your energy, chipped away at your self-worth, or stifled your growth, all because you didn't want to seem rude or dramatic, or because you felt you owed people an explanation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn, especially in a world that constantly demands justifications for our actions. The belief that we need to explain ourselves, to defend our choices, or to seek approval before we make a decision can be deeply ingrained. We live in a society that places a heavy emphasis on transparency and communication. But sometimes the most powerful decision we can make is to walk away from a situation without saying a word, without offering an explanation, and without seeking validation from others. When we think about protecting our peace, we are essentially choosing ourselves, choosing what's best for our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. There is a tendency to assume that leaving a toxic relationship, job, or situation without warning is rude, selfish, or even cowardly. But in truth, it is one of the most courageous and self-loving things you can do. You are not required to explain why you are no longer tolerating discomfort, mistreatment, or negativity. Your peace, your comfort, and your inner balance are more important than the need to justify your departure. People often feel pressured to stay in places or relationships that no longer serve them, simply because they don't want to seem like they are abandoning others. We worry about the impact our departure might have on someone else's feelings, reputation, or life. However, by staying in a situation that isn't conducive to your growth or well-being, you are ultimately doing both yourself and the other person a disservice. If you are not growing, evolving, or thriving, you are not showing up in the best way for those around you either. Your energy is finite, and by expending it on situations that drain you, you are preventing yourself from being fully present in the places and with the people that truly deserve your attention and energy. In many cases, explanations are just an attempt to justify the act of self-preservation. But your right to step away is inherent. It does not need to be rationalized or apologized for. When you know deep down that a relationship, job, or environment is taking more from you than it is giving, your decision to leave is valid without any further explanation. Your peace is the foundation for everything else, for your happiness, your success, and your well-being. If you are constantly giving away your peace in the name of others, you will eventually find yourself lost and depleted, unable to give to anyone in the way you truly want to. There is power in knowing when to walk away and not feeling the need to explain why. It is a sign of self-respect, of understanding your worth, and of knowing that your time and energy are sacred. No one else can define what is best for you, only you can do that. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust that you are making the right choice for your own peace, even if others may not understand it. The truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing to protect your own mental and emotional well-being. In a world that often expects us to explain ourselves, it can be difficult to stand firm in the decision to simply walk away. But when we do, we reclaim our power, we reclaim our peace, and we set the standard for how we deserve to be treated, with respect, with kindness, and with the understanding that our needs, our happiness, and our growth are paramount. Closure isn't always necessary, especially when it comes to leaving situations that no longer serve you. In our lives, we often feel that every ending must come with some form of conclusion, a final conversation, an explanation, or a clear resolution. Society teaches us that in order for us to move on from something, we need to ensure there's closure. But sometimes, true closure doesn't come from a conversation or a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it comes from simply walking away. This idea challenges the conventional belief that every ending needs to be neat and tidy. The truth is, you don't always need to say goodbye with words, and you don't always need someone else's approval to let go. The notion of closure is something we often romanticize, We think that by having the final word or a mutual understanding, we will feel at peace. But in reality, closure is often a construct we create in our minds, an illusion that gives us a false sense of control over an uncontrollable situation. Sometimes things don't end neatly because they're not meant to. Not everything in life can be explained, fixed, or rationalized. There are times when walking away in silence is more powerful than any explanation you could offer. People sometimes stay in relationships, jobs, or situations simply because they feel they owe an explanation to the other person, or because they think they need to wrap things up before they can leave. They feel guilty for not giving the other person the closure they believe they deserve. However, this type of closure isn't always healthy. Not every relationship or situation requires an explanation in order for you to move forward. Sometimes the best way to heal is to leave without dragging the past along with you. You don't need to revisit every moment or piece together a coherent narrative to justify your decision. Sometimes your own sense of peace and well-being should be enough of a reason to move on. The idea of needing closure can keep us stuck, perpetuating a cycle of overthinking, guilt, and emotional exhaustion. When we wait for closure, we place our emotional well-being in the hands of others, hoping they will give us the understanding we seek. But in doing so, we are allowing someone else to control our ability to move on. True closure comes when you realize that you don't need permission to move forward. You are the only one who can decide when it's time to let go and when it's time to heal. There's a freedom that comes from knowing you don't have to explain yourself. You don't need to seek closure from someone else's words, actions, or approval. Your peace doesn't rely on anyone else's understanding. It is enough to simply walk away without trying to explain, justify, or seek approval. Life isn't always black and white, and not everything fits into neat categories. Sometimes we need to accept that certain chapters of our lives don't have a clear ending, they just fade away, quietly and naturally. Closure isn't about a conversation or an explanation. It's about your ability to move forward, to release the past without needing validation from anyone else. True closure comes when you let go, not because someone else gives you permission, but because you've decided that it's time to prioritize your own peace and growth. Disappearing can be an act of self-respect, not avoidance. This idea might seem counterintuitive at first. We often associate disappearing with avoidance, with running away from our problems or responsibilities. However, there are situations in life where choosing to step away without any fanfare is actually one of the most profound expressions of self-respect. It's a form of saying to yourself, I deserve better, and choosing to protect your well-being in a world that often asks too much of you. Too many times we find ourselves staying in situations that drain us, all because we feel we owe something to others or we are afraid of confrontation. We think that in order to show respect to the people around us, we must explain ourselves, apologize for our decisions, or offer some form of closure. But the truth is, when we put the needs of others above our own mental and emotional health, we are doing ourselves and them a disservice. People who truly respect you will understand your need to step away, even if they don't fully understand the reasons behind it. And by walking away quietly, you are setting a powerful boundary that communicates that you are prioritizing your well-being over staying in situations that compromise your peace. Self-respect is about honoring your needs, your values, and your limits. It's about having the courage to choose what's right for you, even if it means taking a step back or disappearing from a situation that no longer aligns with your growth. It's easy to think that staying and enduring difficult circumstances is a sign of strength. However, real strength lies in knowing when to leave, when to step away from environments, people, or relationships that are toxic or no longer serve your personal evolution. When you disappear, you are not running away from the problem. You are choosing to protect yourself from further harm. Walking away from a situation, be it a toxic job, a draining relationship, or an environment that doesn't foster your growth, is an act of self-care, not cowardice. You are showing yourself the respect you deserve by saying, I won't stay in places that make me feel small. I won't allow my energy to be drained by people or situations that are not in alignment with who I am becoming. By choosing to disappear, you are taking control of your life, your emotions, and your future. In many ways, this quiet departure can be more powerful than any confrontation or explanation. There's a certain strength that comes from quietly walking away with dignity. It's a message to the world that you value yourself enough not to tolerate anything that diminishes your sense of self-worth. It says that your time, your energy, and your peace are sacred, and you will not squander them on things or people that do not support your growth. People who respect you will see that disappearing is not about evasion, but about honoring yourself. It's a sign that you understand the importance of self-respect and self-love. You're not afraid to walk away from what no longer serves you, knowing that by doing so, you are creating space for something better, something that will align with your values and your vision for the future. Disappearing is not a sign of weakness or avoidance. It is an act of strength. It is a bold, self-respecting decision to protect your peace, to draw a boundary that says, I am worthy of more. And when you embrace this, you free yourself to step into the life you truly deserve, without hesitation and without apology. Your personal well-being is a valid priority, and yet, it is often one of the most overlooked aspects of our lives. We live in a world that encourages us to give, to help, and to be there for others. We are taught from a young age that being selfless is virtuous, and that the needs of others should sometimes come before our own. While this is admirable in many contexts, it can quickly become toxic when we neglect ourselves for the sake of others. The truth is, your mental, emotional, and physical well-being should be one of your top priorities, not only because it enables you to show up as the best version of yourself for others, but because you deserve it. When we focus on others and put their needs first at the expense of our own, we slowly begin to lose ourselves. We start compromising our values, our happiness, and our peace in an effort to fulfill the expectations of others. Over time, this can lead to burnout, frustration, and a deep sense of resentment. It's easy to get caught up in the belief that our worth is determined by how much we give to others or how much we sacrifice for them. However, the truth is, if you are constantly giving to others without replenishing yourself, you will eventually run out of energy, patience, and emotional reserves. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Your personal well-being is not something to be sacrificed for the comfort of others. It's not selfish to prioritize your health, your happiness, and your growth. In fact, it is essential. Without a strong foundation of self-care and self-respect, you won't be able to support those around you in a meaningful way. When you are at your best, mentally and emotionally, you are more equipped to be present, to listen, to help, and to give to others. But when you are drained, stressed, and overwhelmed, you become less effective in everything you do. You may find yourself feeling resentful of others or even of yourself for not being able to meet all the demands placed on you. There is also a tendency to stay in situations, whether they are relationships, jobs, or environments that no longer serve us, simply because we feel obligated to continue. We feel we owe something to others, whether it's our time, our energy, or our attention. But the truth is, if staying in these situations is taking a toll on your mental or emotional health, then it is not an act of love or responsibility, it is an act of self-neglect. Prioritizing your well-being means understanding that sometimes you have to say no, walk away, or put yourself first. You don't have to explain your decisions to anyone else. Your well-being is a valid reason in itself. Choosing to protect your personal well-being is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. It shows that you understand the importance of caring for yourself so that you can show up fully for the people and things that matter most to you. It's about setting boundaries that allow you to preserve your energy and mental health, so that when you give, you are doing so from a place of abundance rather than depletion. In a world that often pushes us to prioritize everything and everyone else, It is vital to remember that you are just as deserving of care, respect, and love as anyone else. Your well-being is just as important as the well-being of the people you care about. By making it a priority, you are not only protecting your peace, but also ensuring that you can continue to show up as the best version of yourself for the people and passions you hold dear. Quiet exits speak volumes, even though we often overlook the power of leaving without a grand declaration. In a world where we are conditioned to think that every significant decision must be accompanied by explanation or justification, the idea of leaving without fanfare might seem strange. However, there's a profound strength in choosing to exit quietly, to walk away without drama or confrontation. A quiet exit is not about avoidance. It's about making a conscious choice to protect yourself, to assert your boundaries, and to reclaim your peace. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is not with words, but with actions, in this case, by simply leaving. We live in a culture that values outward expressions where we are expected to make a scene, to explain ourselves, and to give others a piece of our minds when we are done with something or someone. The belief is that if we don't speak our truth aloud, if we don't demand attention when we leave, then we are somehow weak or passive. But in reality, the opposite is often true. Walking away without causing a stir shows immense self-control and clarity. It is an act of personal integrity, rooted in the understanding that you do not need to make a dramatic exit to be taken seriously. Your actions in this case, your decision to leave, are enough to convey your message. When you choose to leave quietly, you are asserting that your boundaries are non-negotiable. You are telling the world that you are no longer willing to tolerate situations or relationships that compromise your peace. There's a quiet power in this decision. You are not engaging in drama or conflict. You are simply choosing to prioritize your own well-being over the need for closure or validation from others. It's an expression of self-respect, one that says, "I don't need your approval to know what's right for me. I am walking away because it's what I need to do for myself." A quiet exit, it often communicates more than any words could. Words can be misinterpreted, and explanations can be seen as excuses or attempts to justify a decision. But when you leave without speaking a word, your actions become the message. People may try to fill in the gaps with their own assumptions or conclusions, but in the end, your departure is the message. It tells others that you value yourself enough to walk away from things that no longer serve you. It says that you recognize your worth and are willing to stand by that, even if others don't understand or agree with your choice. Moreover, a quiet exit often has a lasting impact, more than a confrontation ever would. People may forget the words you say in an argument, but they will remember the strength it took for you to quietly walk away from a situation that was no longer right for you. It leaves an impression that you are not afraid to take control of your life, to make difficult decisions, and to prioritize your happiness. In a way, it teaches others that they too can choose peace over conflict, quiet over noise, and self-respect over external validation. When we are caught in difficult situations, we feel that we owe others an explanation, or that we must have the last word. But choosing silence and walking away gracefully can be one of the most empowering things you can do. Your quiet exit is not about being passive. It is about being in control of your life, your emotions, and your choices. It is a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful messages are the ones we convey through our actions, not our words. And when you choose to leave quietly, you are giving yourself the gift of peace, clarity, and the freedom to move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional baggage. The most meaningful transformations often begin in silence. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with noise from social media updates, news cycles, conversations, and the demands of daily life, it can be difficult to embrace the quiet moments, the spaces where transformation occurs without fanfare. Yet it is in the silence that many of the most profound shifts in our lives take place. These moments of stillness allow us to reflect, reset, and begin anew, often without anyone noticing at first. But it's in those quiet beginnings that the groundwork for real change is laid. Transformation is rarely a dramatic, instantaneous event. It is usually a subtle, gradual process, one that often starts quietly and without any visible sign of immediate progress. When you step away from situations that no longer serve you, whether they are toxic relationships, unfulfilling jobs, or environments that drain your energy, the act of walking away itself can be the first step in a much larger transformation. You might not notice the impact immediately, but over time, that quiet decision to choose yourself and your peace can lead to an entirely new way of living, one that is more aligned with your values, your passions, and your true self. In the silence that follows a difficult decision, there is space to breathe, to reconnect with who you really are, and to rediscover what truly matters. When we are constantly surrounded by the noise and distractions of the world, we can easily lose touch with ourselves. But when we allow ourselves to step away from the chaos, we create the opportunity for introspection and growth. It is in the quiet moments that we begin to hear our own voice more clearly, to understand our desires more deeply, and to realize what we need in order to thrive. This process of transformation is not always easy, and it can often feel uncomfortable at first. We are conditioned to think that change should be loud, noticeable, and accompanied by visible results. However, true transformation doesn't always work this way. Sometimes the most profound shifts happen when we are simply allowing ourselves to be still, to let go of old patterns, and to trust that something new is quietly taking shape. This type of change doesn't require a dramatic announcement or a grand gesture. It begins in the heart and mind, in the moments when we choose to prioritize our own growth over external expectations. The silence that comes after a quiet exit is not emptiness. It is filled with potential. It is filled with the seeds of new beginnings ready to sprout when the time is right. By stepping away from what no longer serves us, we create space for new opportunities, new relationships, and new paths to emerge. These new beginnings may not be immediately obvious, but they are often the most lasting and meaningful ones because they are born from a place of intentionality and self-awareness. Sometimes, the most meaningful transformations are the ones that happen quietly, without anyone else noticing. They begin when you choose to let go of what is holding you back, to embrace the stillness, and to trust that, in time, you will emerge stronger, clearer, and more aligned with who you are meant to be. It is in these quiet moments that we find the strength to move forward, to create the life we truly want, and to become the person we are destined to be. And while others may not see the transformation happening from the outside, you will know, deep down, that it is happening quietly, powerfully, and without need for explanation.